To the extent that we live our lives in a manner that is consistent with the truth in our heart, we thrive.
Welcome to the Meyer Clinics podcast, and you just heard a quote from one of your hosts, Dr. Lisa Day. Join our licensed clinical professionals from various backgrounds as they discuss fascinating mental health topics with a wide range of guests. Meyer Clinics is a Christian counseling organization with multiple clinics nationwide dedicated to treating the whole person, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Welcome to our listening family. We thank you for joining us. Hi, everyone. Dr. Lisa Day and me, Kristin Walker, here today. Hello, Lisa.
Good morning, Kristin.
So what are we going to talk about today? Because I think our listeners, our listening family, are just going to love this.
You betcha. Today, what I want to talk about is the amazing power of animals, pets, dogs, cats, horses, in our life and their capacity to nurture us. I mean, I think that we all, have our animals and we think they're cute. Fido, sit, shake, roll over, twist, here's a treat. And I think that our society too quickly thinks of it as a cute American thing to do to have pets. But it's so very important to stop and take a look at the power that having an animal, particularly a nurturing animal in our life, can have. So, when we look at that, and, if you look at statistics, it kind of blew me away to realize that up 62% of households, have an animal in their home. And of those 62%, 95% of us who have those household animals consider them a family member. So they're more than just Fido who does cute tricks and gets a treat. They're a member of our family.
Yeah, they are. They are such a member of our family. And I mean, we have a show on the network that we haven't on Mental Health News Radio Network, which is where Meyer Clinics podcast is thankfully a part of. But we have a show called The Animal Effect. And there's a reason for that, because there's so much to talk about when it comes to animals and mental health, animals and mental illness. And so, we haven't launched it yet, but I'm excited and can't wait to get that one going, because you have to have a place where you can talk about how much you love your animals without people rolling their eyes. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and true. And not only, loving our animals, but, me, Nurse Lisa, and here my clinical psychologist, that funky little mix. It's more than just loving our animals. I mean, there are studies that show, in fact, there's a researcher at Purdue University who did a study with another researcher at the University of Pennsylvania that found both mental health and physical health benefits. And research shows us that when animals in the home, folks who live with those animals have lower blood pressures, they have slower heart rates. When stressed, their breathing becomes more regular at an accelerated rate. Folks who have an animal in their home show lower levels of triglycerides and cholesterol levels, which we all know is associated with cardiac health. And then interestingly, when there was another study that was done that looked at heart attack patients and post-heart attack patients, and those who have animals in the home, they live longer. It's folks who are over the age of 65. The other study showed us that they visit the doctor 30% less than folks who don't have an animal in the home. So there's lots of research that's showing us that not only do we love them, but they have a positive impact on us physically. But my interest in talking about it today is even to look at it, how they affect us emotionally, mentally, and even at a neurochemical level. I mean, you've heard me get off on my tangent. You've heard me get off my tangents of neurochemicals, and I'm fascinated with dopamine and serotonin and oxycontin. Scratch that. Yes. My fascination with oxycontin. Can we start that one again? And then oxytocin and cortisol also being associated with stress hormones. And what research is showing us at a neurochemical level, before we launch into the actual emotional level, is that interacting with a pet raises your serotonin and dopamine, which fight against depression, reduces cortisol, which is our fight or flight hormone, and increases the release of oxytocin, which is another chemical associated with reduction in stress. So physically, neurochemically, pets are an asset But
Yeah.
what I'd like to look at is how they help us emotionally.
Yes, I'm excited to talk about this too because I've always rolled around in the dirt with dogs and loved cats and loved horses. And now that I have a horse as an adult, I fulfilled a childhood wish to always have one. And I'm telling you, I'm not even kidding when I say this. I am not a morning person. Okay. I stay up working late. I do not bound out of bed in the morning. But ever since I got my horse, moved I don't have a property that can have her, but she's boarded 5 houses down from me. She's so close that I literally bound out of bed excited at 7 a.m. to go and take her on a walk,
Wow.
work with her in the round pen. She follows me around like a puppy dog. I can sit down on a stool and she will walk up to me and put her muzzle right on my forehead and just breathe on me. And we'll do that for 10 minutes.
That is so powerful. The empathy and the connection, their ability to, to connect with where you are emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
But what that alludes to as well, though, is, when we talk about pets and mental health, that nurturing that comes in is phenomenal. But also just there in that schedule that you describe, when one is struggling with depression, it's difficult to get out of bed.
Yes,
it's difficult to feel that you have purpose or value or connection, right? And so right there in that one morning experience, you have a reason to get out of bed, so put structure in your life. You have a purpose to go care for the horse. You have a sense of value in that horse putting its nose in your lap, which all of those factors are going to help, with someone who's struggling with depression.
Right. Yes, exactly. And I know for me, I did 7 years with I've got two. Well, we had four border collies. One of them passed away, but the two boys were actual certified or registered therapy dogs, and we worked with mental health patients for 7 years. And the things that we witnessed, my dogs and I working with, going into psych hospitals and working with kids in schools that were having behavioral problems, I can't even explain. I'll share a few stories later as we're talking, but what it did for the staff. I used to go up the elevator of the hospital, and I was there every Friday, no matter what, for 5 years. And the staff would be waiting for me, the nurses, the psychologists, the front desk that buzzes you in behind the locked door, all those things were waiting at the elevator, and they nicknamed him Puppy Prozac.
Oh my goodness. Well, they're so instrumental, and we see them in the hospitals, and we see them, in the schools. And I think the general public can go, oh, how cute is that? There's a puffy little dog.
Right.
And I had a similar incident, Kristin, when my older daughter was 8 years old, and I'm not biased against this dog because I love all dogs, but my daughter was attacked by a pit bull, and it tore off part of her face. And literally that landed us in the hospital for several weeks and lots of scares and what have you. But and this was at the Seattle Children's Hospital, and part of her healing, the very first day, in less than 24 hours, they had this beautiful, loving golden retriever therapy dog that they brought right in. And, I had stepped out to go get something to drink or eat or something. And I came back in, and that dog was in bed with my daughter in the hospital. And here are all her IVs, and the dog is in bed. And I'm telling you, my daughter didn't miss a beat. She didn't leave that attack with trauma against dogs, with trauma in general. She said, Mom, that dog was just in a bad space that day. Truly, it was an instrumental in her healing of what could have ended up being a PTSD disorder.
Wow. Exactly. So how do you bring this up? I love the combination of the RN and the psychologist. It's such a unique combination. So you know more of the physical pieces of what's going inside someone's body, as well as the mental. So if you're working with a patient as an example, and you really think that them volunteering with an animal or, having an animal is something that would be good for them, how do you go about, first of all, figuring that out, and second of all, bringing it up?
That is so important. So one of the most common things that I talk about in therapy, particularly as it relates to mood disorders, so anxiety or depression, undue stress, and then the things that can cause that, such as loneliness and trauma and what have you. One of the very first things I look at is who nurtures you, which is often met with the deer in the headlight look. What do you mean, who
Right.
nurtures? It's like, huh? And it's always met like that. And so, in doing assessment, it's one of the biggest deficits that I see associated with depression and anxiety. And usually I'll take a look and I'll do a little discussion on a concept called failure to thrive, which really is when an infant or a young child or animal or what have you does not thrive, simply secondary to lack of nurturing, physical touch. And there's all kinds of behavioral med studies I call it the metal monkey study, the furry monkey study. But essentially, we all need nurturing. And in my practice, and I'll bore you quickly and run through them, I talk about 10 essential nurturing needs. And I talk about the need for attention, which is just one-on-one connection, interaction, eye contact, that you are the one. Attention. Affection, and that's touching and hugging and cuddling and the warmth of a body, the connectedness. So we have attention, affection, time, which is just that, shared time, safety and security, that relationship is going to be what that relationship is going to be. There's consistency, we can predict, and it's reliable. Unique identity, and you might think, what unique identity of a dog? I don't know about you, Kristin. I've got two, right? One of them is a terrier, and the other one's a lab mix, and they have two different identities. Let me tell you.
Yes.
And I love them both, right? So if we think of just those are the first 5 nurturing needs, but quickly: attention, affection, time, a sense of safety and security, identity. Then we go on to our regular needs of admiration, appreciation, respect, sense of belonging, and sense of mattering. And no single person in any of our lives are going to meet all of those nurturing needs, right? But if you look at that list, I don't know about you, but I get a lot of attention from my dogs.
Admiration.
I get a lot of admiration, a tremendous amount of affection. They would have all of my time. I can't even go in, can't blow dry my hair without both of them sitting there.
Oh, I walk out of the bathroom and it's like I have been gone for 7 weeks. She's so excited that I showed up just walking out of the bathroom that I just went in after petting her for 10 minutes, 5 minutes ago. So it's fantastic.
Well, and you talk about a sense of belonging. You go to get in bed and there they are on the bed. Okay, I'm ready for night. So to bring that, they bring us joy, but to bring that back to what it looks like in a clinical sense is that oftentimes because of, whatever brings someone into therapy, trauma, injury, loss, abandonment, rejection, people are not being nurtured. And oftentimes, simply beginning the interaction with an animal is a safe place. I have, as I mentioned, I have a terrier, a border terrier, and a lab mix, and I've had my border terrier the longest, and she comes to session with me every day. And it's the neatest thing, and I don't know if it's because I had teens or what, but she goes immediately to the teens, and she's well-trained, so she asks if she can get up. She climbs on their lap and turns upside down, and notoriously the teen is rubbing their belly and then telling me about what's going on in their life, meaning giving that warmth, that safety, that security.
Right, exactly. I know I say this too with, and this can be, any animal. It could be a rabbit, it could be whatever. People have their different animals that they're attracted to. I love all animals. I even love, lizards and snakes, and I love all of, and rats. I just love the animal kingdom as a whole. There's something though about a dog and a horse, to me, where they are just the ultimate receivers of empathy. There's something about those connections that they have with us as human beings that, and I'm someone who's been around every kind of animal, and I have just seen that over and over again. And they're not the same. Horses give it differently than dogs, definitely. But there's something unique I've seen, and maybe I'm biased, but about those kind of connections. And I was a huge trainer and speaker about therapists using dogs in their therapy practices. And I spoke about this over a decade ago. I traveled around the country speaking about it, and it was not popular then. It was not popular. So I was speaking to very skeptical crowds of psychiatrists, LCSWs, psychologists, and so on. And it was fascinating. The moment that I would make all of the counselors or all of the people there that were listening to me get on the floor and sit in a circle, and I would bring my dogs to the middle of the circle, and I would say, right now, you all are patients. You're not therapists, you're patients. And we're going to let Miles and Buddy do their thing. By the end of that session, we were the loudest room doing the session of all the other speakers at the conference. We had the most fun, the most laughter, the most tears, the most sharing. And I didn't say a word, just talked about, what was going on. And at the end of it, I said, that is what you'll see from your patients. And a light bulb came on I watched it just go ding, 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 ding around a room of 50 people on the floor with hair all over their legs and not caring one bit.
But it's huge. It's huge. They're not just cute, fluffy little bundles of love. It's so powerful. And, we know of many treatment programs around the country that use horses, the equine therapy.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, I did some volunteering for a while, but I had an amazing experience similar to what you're talking about with my daughter. And my daughter struggles with ADHD and bipolar, and consequently struggles a lot on the inside. And we went out into a paddock, and there was a stall with a paddock, and I said, let's go give this horse some love and let's go groom on the horse. And we walked in, and I grew up with horses, so I'm pretty comfortable around them. And I was brushing the horse. And then he kind of got bored and moseyed out of the stall, moseyed out to the paddock, and went out to the pasture. And my daughter turned to me and she said, see, Mom, he doesn't even like me. And I wanted to burst into tears. And I said, sweetheart, what is going on in your heart? And she said, inside my heart, Mom, I'm saying, I'm terrified of you. You're going to hurt me. I don't want to be around you. And you don't want to be around me. And I said, and then what did the horse do? And she said, well, he walked out of the stall and out into the pasture. And Kristin, I kid you not, with goosebumps as I share this, I said, sweetheart, I want you to try something. I want you to put your hand on your heart. And I want you to say, I open my heart up to you. I've come to love on you and to accept love from you. I'm here to share my heart with you. I kid you not, that horse started walking back toward the paddock, toward the paddock, into the stall, put its head up against my daughter's abdomen, chest, and laid down.
Whoa.
I have never seen anything like that in my life. My daughter and I, both of us, tears. I said,
it was a mess.
I've grown up with horses, and I've never seen a horse lay down voluntarily in front of me. I've come in on them when they've been sleeping. But this is the empathy that animals are tuned into. They read our nonverbals. They're sensitive to our emotions, and they are able to connect in a way that isn't just cute and sweet. It's powerful.
Absolutely. I was working with someone the other day, and I'm not, in no way am I IGALA trained, and I'm not a counselor either. I'm a patient of counseling services from amazing counselors, or an amazing counselor. But I was watching someone that is a good friend of mine. She's high energy. She's high strung. Very demanding, but she's a business owner, so she just boom, boom, boom. She's in command of a lot, so she's got a lot of stress on her plate. And she was watching me with my horse, and she was like, why is it that your horse is so calm? Like when we went to move my horse from one property to another, there were all these plans made of, well, we've got to give her this drug to calm her down, and she might be a problem, and she may kick. My horse, I grabbed her. I said, she'll be fine. Trust me, she'll be fine. She walked right up into that trailer without a problem. And she wanted to know, why does your horse behave that way with you? Why do they calm down when they're around you? And I said, because I learned that they're going to feed off of my energy, what's going on inside me. They're not going to go with what's going on outside of me. They know what's going on inside of me. And if I'm not calm, they're not going to be calm. So you have to think about that too. And that, I think, is what's been great when I've heard other therapists talk about how they sort of try to get their patients to be aware of their emotional state, what's going on inside of them, and what that's manifesting in the outside world of their life. The ability to
Emotionally regulate.
Emotionally regulate, yes,
Yeah.
to their animal. It's like once you get someone to do it even one time, they can't say it can't be done because you just did it.
Well, and the neat thing is, being a cognitive behavioral therapist, I teach all the time that what you think, you become. And so what you walked through is you have learned how to emotionally regulate, but by seeing it have a positive impact on something outside of yourself, it's then believable. Whereas when we have anxiety or depression, we don't believe it. We're afraid that nothing is going to help us and nothing is going to make us better. So when we try, when we tried that what you think you become, your thoughts create your reality, and you think, I'm going to be calm, I'm going to breathe calm, and then it affects something outside of you. It's like, whoa, this is real. This is real. I can have an impact on my emotional state. I can have an impact on feeling better. And it's huge. It's hugely instrumental.
Hi, this is Dr. Paul Meyer, founder of the national chain of Meyer Clinics. I've often told you about how people just like you are getting the healing that they need from emotional issues like depression, anxiety, anger problems, and relational problems. We wanted to share with you Mickey's experience at our day program and how it has affected his life.
The Meyer Clinics has been a real blessing to me. Dr. Meyer told me that people get well here, and my life has been completely changed. I have been symptom-free for 3 years, and I'd recommend it to anybody that really wants to overcome an emotional problem of any kind.
Mickey's story is like so many others that we receive. It's an encouragement to us, and we hope it will also be an encouragement to you to call us to get the emotional help that you've needed. Please call toll-free 888-7-CLINIC to be connected to the Meyer Clinic program nearest you. That's 1-888-7-CLINIC, or go to MeyerClinics.com. That's www.meierclinics.com.
There were things that I saw happen with kids, especially because kids are just, I love kids, especially little boys. Because I had one child and he was a son, so I have this special affinity for all the things that little boys love to get into, the gross things and the funny things and their take on the world. But what fascinated me is, of course, when I would go visit schools and I would take my dogs with me, it was, maybe there would be one little girl in a classroom and then 12 boys, right? These are the quote unquote problem kids. And actually they were the amazing kids that were being taught about boundaries and stuff. And I was like, why aren't they teaching this in the other classrooms? But anyway, so what was so great was the empowerment that you can utilize as a human being to infuse into children by doing things like having them tell my dog to sit and he would sit, or having him run to the left or run to the right. He was a border collie, so he could do all these amazing things, or having him bark when they'd say Aflac, that made my dog bark whenever they would do the Aflac dog. So he'd be hoarse by an hour with 12 little boys. But just that they would be like, wow, I made that animal do that. It gave them so much self-esteem. So you cannot cry when you're a therapy dog handler, because then you're out of the hospital. You just can't do it. But I literally would have to look up and be like, don't let the tears come. Don't let the tears come.
Well, because it's so very powerful in a therapeutic manner.
Yes.
And when we grow up with animals, especially children, it helps them learn, obviously, responsibility, because we have to let them go potty and we have to feed them and we have to brush them. So it's an innate learning dynamic. But the other thing that I observe, and research would back it up, is that for children especially, it begins to teach them compassion and empathy, which in our social tech world, when people are, they're playing on their media all day long, we've become more and more away from that, whereas animals really connect a child to that compassion, to that joy, to the empathy that they experience from a dog. And the other thing that we have, dogs aren't critical and they don't give orders, right? So the child has a sense of ownership of space. They're not being told what they're doing wrong or right, or where they're not excelling in school. They offer that unconditional acceptance and joy.
Yes.
To see that.
I'm telling you, my dogs had thousands of people in so much emotional pain cry into their necks. Mm-hmm. And the ability to be able to do that was just, some of these people were bottled inside for years.
For years, yeah.
And
even with children, just the plain simple exposure to animals. There was one study that compared children growing up in homes with animals versus growing up in homes without animals, and the figures were something along the lines of, in a study of 600 kids, those who grew up without animals had about a 20% representation of anxiety, whereas those who grew up with animals had a 10% representation of anxiety. So a significant impact. And we talk about the mental and health and physical health benefits, but I mean, there are just day-to-day benefits, of having a pet in your home, meaning increasing exercise.
Yes.
Yeah, that's, people who have animals, we need to walk them. We need to get out in nature, which causes us to interact with other people. This morning I was walking my dogs. It was 15 degrees. Thank you very much. And post 10 feet of snow.
Never coming to visit you in the winter, ever.
My neighbors probably think I'm nuts, not just a loving animal owner. But, I stopped and talked with a man who I've never met. And I thought to myself, it's so very true that not only do the dogs get you out to exercise, but they put you in proximity with other people that you meet. They're a conduit, if you will, to building relationship with other people.
Right. Very true. Very true. So, I mean, do you regularly use an animal, one of your dogs when you're doing your work, or do you pick based on the patient what's going on with them?
It's interesting. I don't bring my dog based on the patient. I actually bring her based on the day, and that's
okay.
Yeah, but it's interesting because, and not to give them a bad rap, but Stella is my border terrier's name, and she's the one who's done the most work with me. My other one is still in training, and she's pretty good diagnostician, meaning she doesn't have much interest in a narcissist. She will go behind my chair and lay down. Yeah, right. You think that's funny, but I'm like, okay.
I know, because I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. With the teens, she immediately, when a teen comes, her sign of please is to go sit in front. And if you say okay, then she can jump up on your lap. Teens, she immediately goes to. Someone who comes in acute pain before we've even had a chance to sit and talk, she'll go immediately up to their feet. When someone is bipolar and is having a manic episode, again, she tends to retreat and come back to me. So it's the openness and the compassion of the client that really draws her in or not in. She's not typical to go up to someone to comfort them, but she's very sensitive to where they are in their emotions.
Right.
So yeah, and she's not formal training, and I don't know, Kristin, you might be able to speak to that, but there are therapy, emotional support dogs, and then there's service dogs, and then there are psychiatric service dogs.
Yeah, that's a good. Like, do you mind if I tell people the difference? Because I know I've spoken about this all over.
Sure.
So just so listeners, you understand, there's a therapy dog is a dog that should really get registered through an organization like Therapy Dogs International, Delta Society. They'll do those kind of things. They've loosened up on the regulations. When I did this was 10, 11 years ago, and your dog couldn't do this, and it couldn't be deaf, and it couldn't blah blah blah. Well, they couldn't be off of a 4-foot lead, and I had to give blood and a kidney to get Miles approved to be in a hospital. I mean, and now it's not like that. Things have changed, but therapy dogs are there for everybody else. Their job is to be there for other people, so they will wear those dog vests that say "Pet me, please." And what I'd ask listeners, for all of you to think about, is this is profoundly important. Read the vest. Okay, that's so important. It's not required that service dogs and therapy animals wear vests, but it's a nicety if the handlers will have them do it. Read those vests. If it says it's okay to pet, then that dog's there. That's a therapy dog. That's not a dog that can sit on a plane in the plane with you. They have to go in the cargo hold. That's a therapy dog doesn't have the same status as a service dog. And I'm saying dog, but there's horses, and I saw a therapy duck once waddle onto first class on an airplane. I was not in first class, but I was watching it. So, then there's emotional support animals, and those are considered the same rights as a service animal. So they can go, not in cargo with you on a plane. And those are for the person that they're with. Just like service dogs. They are there. They're not to be pet by other people. You're actually distracting them from their work to do that. They're for that person that has some kind of disability, be it they're struggling with mental illness, PTSD, whatever, or they're blind, or they're deaf, or they have, diabetes or autism, whatever it may be. Those dogs don't touch. Look at the vest. It's going to say, please don't pet me. But those are the differences there. So it was funny when I would first start taking Miles around with me and I'd bring him to different places. People would go, oh, you poor thing, you have a dog with you, and I'd be, we won't bother him, and I'm like, no, I have problems for sure, but this dog is here for you, so you can pet him. He's
right,
not my service animal. Yeah. He's here to make you happy. And I've had people in the middle of a restaurant, because there's some restaurants that'll let you bring therapy dogs in, and I've had people lay on a dirty floor in a restaurant in the middle of the walkway to lay on the floor, literally, and talk to my dog. So it's kind of amazing that way, but you're not going to do that with a service animal.
Because they're working.
They're They're on the job.
Yeah. Well, and so if we track that back, and if we think of people with severe psychiatric illness, and that they're in the same category as someone who's blind. So severe psychiatric illness, a service dog may prevent that person from wandering into the street.
Right.
Whereas a dog that's working for someone who's blind is going to keep them from walking into the street. Whereas the therapy dog is more emotional support, emotional comforting, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. They're there for the emotional comforting of others. They're there. And you, as a service dog, is trained that they're on the job, 24/7, but they do get times where they're at home and the vest comes off and they get to just be a dog or be a horse or be whatever. A therapy dog is so different in that they're not focused on one person. They're there for everybody. So I had to be very careful. When Miles was younger, we could do 2 to 3 visits a day, 1 to the psych hospital and 2 schools, right? And he was cool with that, 30 to 45 minutes and we're gone. As he got older, I took it down to 1 visit a day, and then it was a couple visits a week only, and then it was once a week, because he got older and that volume of emotional need, since all of my therapy dog work was in mental health, we weren't doing visiting a nursing home or something. We were doing highly people in a psych ward. Some of them were on a 5150 hold, all of those things. I had to be very cognizant of how much stress, emotional stress, he was taking on from a lot of people in order to provide emotional support for them. And when he was done at the end of the day or end of a visit, he was done. And that's different than a service dog, because like I said, they're just focused on that one person, and a therapy dog is focused on everybody else.
Everybody. Yeah. Well, and so if we think about that, if we think about therapy dog and we think about pets, tracking it back to their involvement, in healing, if you will, anxiety and depression, and, looking at those nurturing needs that we talked about. When I'm working with someone with a mood disorder, some of the basic things we want to do is, focus on regular exercise. So animals give us regular exercise. Mm-hmm. We want to look at increasing, our support system. And so immediately a dog can provide companionship. We also want to look at, how are you navigating or coping with anxiety? And we know that just stroking a dog, petting a dog, that connection, it soothes. Also, with treatment of depression, we want to build that structure and routine. We as human beings, we seek to be able to predict and control our environment. Right. And when we're depressed, we lose that structure. Oh, yeah. So animals, they add that structure. So therapeutically, when you have an animal, whether a patient, client has an animal or we're considering encouraging them as a part of their treatment, it increases the exercise, increases the structure, increases the companionship. It provides stress relief because of the two-way connection and attachment it's bringing you into relationship. Dogs boost your vitality, and it fights against the isolation, and really, and again, not to minimize it, but pets have a huge impact on your self-esteem and well-being, in that you have purpose, you have value, you're needed, you're wanted.
Exactly. I will say this. I mean, we had, I always had a lot of animals, but when we got these 4 border collies, the 2 girl dogs were not fit to be around children, so they did not make good therapy dog material. All raised the same, but a dog, the test that they give you is to see if the dog's first response is to bite or growl. And if it is, that's just that dog. You didn't raise it wrong. You didn't, if dogs have their own unique personalities, and if they are a dog that is their first response, if they get their tail pulled a little bit, is to growl or bark, that's not good therapy dog material. My other 2 border collies were like, they'd lick your face if you hurt them. So they're like, okay, good. These dogs are good to go. But what was fascinating for me in some of the times when I was in deep clinical depression was the other 2, the girls, they would lay in bed with me for, 14-hour stretch during the middle of the day. And just knowing that they were there and snuggled up to me, it helped me get through it easier than it would have if I didn't have that companion that just loved me. Does that make sense?
Well, it makes so much sense, Kristin, and you have shared with me in our work together some of your journey and some of the injury and pain that has come from your primary caregivers. And that speaks so to it, because one of the things that I talk about with clients is that, they'll say, where is God? Here my father abused me in this way and my mother abused me in that way. If my mother and father would do this, how can there possibly be a God? And I say, this is scripture that we feel the love of the Lord who has no flesh through those around us who have. And, notoriously, they're going to say, I don't want it. I've been hurt, abused, neglected, abandoned, criticized, beaten. But an animal gives us that unconditional love and acceptance, those 14 hours of laying side by side. Right. And that in there, I can say, do you feel love from that animal? Do you feel that unconditional love, acceptance, excitement, and joy to see you? And I said, that's the love of the Lord. Just as you feel it in your animal, that is the love of the Lord. And so oftentimes when we're healing from trauma, particularly akin to what you've gone through, it's our first step with rebuilding trust or re-engaging in love. It's hugely effective.
Absolutely. Can I share a quick story that I think might be inspiring? Okay. I was, doing the psych ward work with Miles, and I didn't know that the psychologist and the psychiatrist that ran the unit was doing a test, and the test was over a 6-month period, and they, I never knew patient names unless they told the patient told me their names because of HIPAA privacy and so on, but. They finally, at the end of this 6 months, they said to me, as they were walking me out to let me out, because, it was a lockdown facility, so I had to be let out. And they said, hey, we just wanted to let you know that we have been tracking for 6 months every week how many times Miles goes directly to the patient that we've had the most issues with or hasn't spoken since they've gotten here, has been the most unresponsive or maybe even violent, the patient that really would need him the most. And we wanted to give you the numbers on that. And I said, oh, that's okay. Wow. That's fascinating. And he said 100% of the time.
Oh my goodness. Went to the person with the greatest need.
Yep, because we were in a group therapy room, and so he would immediately pick someone that, he spread the love around everybody that was there. Sometimes there'd be 3 people, and sometimes there would be 25. It just depended because it was a 7-day facility. So 100% of the time, the first person he went to was the one who was the most, quote unquote, I don't want to say difficult because they didn't put it that way either. Just the patient they had the most challenges with. Yeah.
Well, and I've read some studies that the same thing with in prison environments, that criminals, it can show long-term changes by interacting with dogs simply because of that mutual affection where perhaps they have not experienced it in the past. It's pretty powerful.
Exactly.
One of the things, though, I also do mention, we're so excited. Obviously, you and I are both pro animals, pro dogs, pro therapy. But on the flip side of that coin, sometimes in therapy, I will get that I'm just going to go buy a dog. And, there's a balance in there, folks, in that, yes, dogs provide love, compassion, unconditional love, meet all of our nurturing needs. However, we have to realize that there's downsides to owning dogs, and they can be incredibly stressful if we don't know what we're getting into, meaning they require a tremendous amount of time, and attention. You can't just put them on the sidelines. They curb our social activity because we have to come home and walk them and can't leave them for long periods of time, and we have to make plans when we travel. And I'm laughing because my new dog, they can be quite destructive. They can be naughty. They can be naughty. I heard a big bang the other day in my kitchen, and this rather large, she's a Pyrenees lab mix that's come into my home. And it was the rotisserie chicken that was taken off the counter. It was on the floor. and so if that's dinner, that can be stressful if you're not in a position of knowing what you're getting. You're like,
exactly. Yes, and they will get into things if their feelings are hurt. Okay, they just do. I don't care what any animal expert wants to argue with me, because I had a golden retriever who every time I left for longer than 3 days to go on a speaking circuit, who would eat one shoe out of 7 pairs of shoes. So I had 7 shoes left out of 14 shoes, 7 pairs. And at the end of it, I had 7 shoes left because she chewed specifically 1 shoe of each one of those pairs.
So they sense, and they can punish us and be destructive.
Absolutely.
So while they can be stressful, and I just give that caution because I don't want everybody to run out and get an animal and think it's going to cure their depression. It's instrumental in meeting many of the needs that help us move out of depression. But that triggered a thought for me, Kristin, too, as well, is that, they're great mediators. Many folks will describe an animal coming. If there's an argument in the home, the animal will try to come in and mediate, or it will move and run away. Meaning if you come in angry and furious with A, B, or C, your dog will sense that. And depending upon the dog, will come to you to soothe that, or will stay away, because the energy is real tough. But
absolutely. So I'm in, obviously, the mental health field. I've been in it for a long time. I've been in it not as a counselor, but as a technology person and so on. And then, of course, this, the radio show network. But when I was still in the technology piece, I was speaking about emotional support animals. I was at a mental health conference, and it was all for counselors. And it was during a time when Medicaid rules were changing and how people were reimbursed, how counselors were reimbursed for their services and so on, were changing. And everybody there, the counselors were the audience, and they were so upset, so rightly so, but they literally pulled me out of one of my speaking sessions early to have me bring Miles into the room where everyone was upset, all the counselors. And the moment that we walked into that room, everybody calmed down.
It's powerful.
And that was a bunch of counselors, okay?
Wow. They're real people too, my friend.
That's right, they are, and I love them.
Yes, I go home and lay on the floor. This morning I do my meditation in the morning, and I had to laugh, Kristin. I finished my meditation of deep breathing and calm relaxation, and I look, and my Labrador is flat on its back with legs spread and arms spread, and then my Border Terrier is down by my feet on her belly, legs spread and arms spread. And I thought, oh, the companionship, the warmth, the love, the connection.
And they were feeding off of your energy of being calm and meditative and so on. So
absolutely, they're fun. They're fun.
Well, this is a show the series that we're doing about animals has been one I've been so looking forward to. So listening family, please tune in to our next one where we talk about the important thing. It is important to talk about the grieving process when it comes to your animals. So I look forward to that next time. Dr. Lisa Day, again, thank you so much for coming on and doing these shows.
Thank you, Kristin. It's awesome. It's powerful.
And thank you, listeners. We'll catch you next time. We hope you enjoyed this podcast. Tune in next time for another engaging discussion on relevant mental health topics. If you have any questions about Meyer Clinics, please visit our website at meyerclinics.com. That's MEIER clinics.com, or call us at 888-7-CLINIC. Don't forget to leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or any of your favorite podcast apps. And please note that we are a member of and produced by Mental Health News Radio Network, MHNRnetwork.com.